WordPress Accessibility Day 2024 Inclusive Design Strategies for WordPress Professionals with speaker Jonny Allbut, Head of UX at Illustrate Digital. This presentation was recorded October 2024.
Hi everyone, and welcome to WordPress Accessibility Day 2024. My name is Igakun and I am COO from Plant Africa. Thank you for joining us for Inclusive Design Strategies for WordPress Professionals from Jonny Allbut. Jonny Allbut is the head of user experience and quality assurance at Illustrate Digital, one of Europe's leading UX and WordPress technology agencies. Starting his career as a traditional graphic designer, he's been building websites since the late 90s and specialized in bespoke WordPress development since 2025. With a broad career in the creative industries, working alongside global brands, he now leads a team of UI designers and UX researchers at Illustrate Digital to build the best digital experiences for clients and their users. Remember to add your questions in the question and A section, and we'll answer them at the end of the section. Don't forget to use the chat to connect with other attendees. Hi, Jonny, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Wow, couldn't have done a better job myself. So hi everyone, thanks for joining us wherever you are. It's the start of the day here in the UK. It's 8 a.m. and I cannot think of a better way to kick off my day than with you here right now. I'm so excited to be part of WordPress Accessibility Day this year. I have so much to share with you today. So my name's Jonny, with over 25 years of industry experience working with global brands and market leaders. I now head up user experience at Illustrate Digital, where I've worked for 3.5 years. We deliver bespoke enterprise level WordPress development, backed up by great UX research and creative. I've personally been working with WordPress since 2005 and have spoken at a few WordCamps and other meetups around the UK in the past. A commitment to accessibility was one of the main things that drew me to Illustrate Digital. The ongoing commitment to creating inclusive and accessible websites that look amazing very strongly resonates with me. Now I have the opportunity to achieve this for clients all around the world, together with our brilliant team. So today we're going to look over some ideas, strategies and tools that I've learned over the years and share some useful insights into how we approach accessibility here at Illustrate Digital. But before we really get going, I think it's important to understand our motivations. If you're here, you're interested in accessibility and quite likely an advocate yourself. Brilliant. However, sadly, not everyone shares our passion and sense of responsibility to open and accessible websites. Obviously a pretty big mistake for so many reasons. Okay, so let's take a quick look at where we are at on web accessibility. As reported by the World Health Organization, 16% of the world's population, or 1 in 6 of us, experience significant disability. That's an estimated 1.3 billion people. Just let that sink in for a while. It's a big number. Okay, if I look kind of closer to home at UK census data, to identify disability in England and Wales, it was asked, do you have a physical or mental health condition or illness lasting or expecting to last 12 months or more? If respondents answered yes, a further question was asked. Do any of your conditions or illnesses reduce your ability to carry out day-to-day activities? I'm not going to dwell too much on the stats. I'm sure there'll be some really interesting stuff coming today in other presentations. But what I'd like you to think about for a moment is averages. So in the UK, the English region with the highest population of disabled people was the North East, 21.2%, over 500,000 people. There's a number of areas with much higher proportions too, reaching over 24%, for instance, in Blackpool. When we think globally, it's a much starker picture. Poverty access to assistive technologies, or even any quality technology. All these are intertwined to create much more alarming figures. A lot of us are spoilt with access to powerful computers and mobile devices, but something to always consider is the digital poverty technology gap. Digital accessibility is not just about professional best practice or something to upsell. It's a human right. As developers, creators, and decision makers, we have a duty to craft inclusive digital experiences that respect the dignity and autonomy of every user. Accessibility is a cornerstone of all our work here at Illustrate Digital, and should be yours too. Finally, also consider we have an aging population in the world, and life expectancy is generally increasing. With that in mind, we need to consider that the importance of accessibility is only set to rise as time goes on, as our population progressively ages, which inevitably comes with health and accessibility challenges. With all this in mind, though, we also have to balance this passion with commercial challenges. We need to consider the needs, priorities, and budgets of our clients. And this leads us to some questions that you may encounter. Okay, so as we embark on our journey to understand how to effectively implement accessibility, it's important to address some common concerns that often arise. These questions reflect a broader challenge many face when considering accessibility in web design. Do these sound a bit familiar to you? But doesn't supporting accessibility cost me more? What about accessible website design means I will have a boring looking site? I'm sure if you've been in the industry for a while, you'll have heard something similar like this in the past, right? I'm just going to give you a bit of a spoiler or reveal right now. No, it really doesn't to both of those. In fact, it's likely to cost your client a lot more in the long run to ignore accessibility. We're going to cover some strategies and approaches to help you combat assumptions like these throughout this entire presentation. Okay, so let's start thinking a little bit more from a commercial angle here. Inclusive design and accessibility are not just ethical considerations. To me, they are strategic business decisions. By making our websites accessible, we reach a broader audience. Very, very simple. Okay, as we saw, 16% of the global population is living with some form of disability or challenge, representing a market opportunity of literally not millions, trillions of dollars. I find money talks pretty loud when it comes to clients, okay? Demonstrating a commitment to inclusivity through accessible design builds brand loyalty. You can literally destroy years or even decades of positive brand perception by excluding users from your site or digital product. Accessibility features like clear navigation enhance usability for everyone, increasing engagement and conversion rates across the board. I'm not going to get into SEO. I'm not an SEO specialist. I know some fundamentals, but it's recognized that many accessibility best practices actually align with SEO best practices, which could have a positive influence on things like search engine rankings. And probably the biggest one for clients in many territories, accessibility helps us comply with legal standards, avoiding costly lawsuits. I'm sure we're all aware of some pretty scary numbers around this kind of stuff. You know, there's the old example, and I'm sure that's probably been mentioned or will be mentioned later, back from 2008, when the National Federation of the Blind versus Target Corporation resulted in a settlement of $6 million in damages plus additional fees, which actually amounted to approximately $10 million. Legal cases are on the rise, and sometimes cases are settled outside of court. Don't just think because you're not a global megacorp, you can hide under a rock and escape this risk. You can't. Prioritizing accessibility is not just the right thing to do, it's a wise business move that can benefit your client, revenue, and of course, all the users we serve. So let's start looking at how accessibility considerations effectively fit into an agency production process. Accessibility should never be an afterthought. Avoid the costly mistake of thinking accessibility can be dealt with near the end of a project. That will cost you money and cause you a lot of stress. To ensure that our websites and digital products are accessible to all, we need to integrate accessibility into every stage of our workflow from start to finish. Let's start with the sales team. It's essential that they are aware of the importance of accessibility and can communicate its value to clients. By setting clear expectations and identifying potential accessibility challenges, we can ensure that our clients are on board with us from day one with our accessibility goals. This might actually just be the very thing that wins you your next project, okay? As we move into project planning, our project managers play a crucial role in planning for accessibility from the outset. This includes understanding accessibility goals and priorities and allocating necessary resources to support accessibility efforts. We're very lucky at Illustrate Digital. All of our developers are very knowledgeable about accessibility, but in every team, there are real accessibility champions. So allocation of the right expertise at the right time is absolutely vital. In the design phase, our UX designers must create inclusive designs that consider diverse user needs. By following established accessibility guidelines, and of course the expertise of those team members, we ensure that we are agreeing to develop using all best practices of accessibility right from day one. Start your project with strong foundations. Do not make the mistake of creating UI designs that have not got accessibility built into them. When it comes to development, our developers must write accessible code that meets established accessibility standards. To be fair, this is probably more weighted to our front-end devs in many cases. Throughout testing and debugging, all of that is critical to ensure accessibility features are working correctly. This is where QA, or quality assurance, comes in. Our QA process is thorough. I have the greatest of respect for any QA testers out there. They need a very deep knowledge of so many things, but obviously accessibility is right up there at the top of the list. But accessibility doesn't stop with just what we develop. We need to educate and get buy-in from our clients around accessibility, encourage them to provide feedback, train them, mentor them, and more importantly, ensure what they are publishing is accessible. Finally, post-go live, in the support and maintenance phase, we need to ensure that our accessibility features are maintained and updated over time as new techniques and technologies come along. Regular monitoring for accessibility issues and addressing concerns are essential to ensuring that our digital products remain accessible to all. By integrating accessibility into every stage of your workflow, we can ensure that our digital products are accessible, usable, and inclusive for all users. So let's take a look at some of these functions in a bit more detail. For our internal agency sales team, highlighting accessibility as a competitive advantage and framing it as a solution to client pain points can help demonstrate the value and our commitment to accessibility. Compelling stats on accessibility can also help make the case for prioritizing accessibility. So dig deep. Consider what's relevant and will resonate with your client rather than just general statistics. There's plenty of credible information out there to back up your case. Project managers, again, of course, as mentioned, need to share the value and importance of accessibility. It's essential to integrate accessibility milestones into workflows and manage stakeholder expectations around accessibility compliance. By balancing accessibility with other project constraints, we can ensure that accessibility is not compromised at any stage. Finally, our internal support staff play a critical role in providing ongoing support and education for client teams. By utilising accessibility resources and encouraging accessibility best practices with our team, with our clients, we can help clients maintain and improve accessibility over time. Okay, so this is obviously one that's very close to my heart as head of user experience. This is where we need to build strong accessibility foundations right from the start of the project. Whilst there's certainly some considerations around appropriate UX research to understand users, I'm going to focus mainly on the UI design process here, as I feel it's probably what's most relevant to a larger proportion of the audience today. Because believe me, I could go on all day if we had time just on this slide, but time is precious. So first, let's talk about empathy and user-centric design. It's essential to consider the diverse needs of all users. By putting ourselves in the shoes of our users, we can design experiences that are truly inclusive. Next, we need to maintain contextual awareness. This means understanding of where, when, and how people are using our websites and digital products. Are they using a mobile device on the go? Are they in a noisy environment? Are they in an office environment? These factors can significantly impact how users interact with our designs. Cognitive load management is another crucial aspect. Let me just explain what that means in a nutshell. Don't make your users work too hard or have to think too hard to figure out how to use your website or user interface. We must strive to make our interfaces easy to understand for everyone. This involves obvious things like simplifying navigation, site architecture, using very clear language with clear intent, and ensuring that information is organized and presented in a logical order. Finally, inclusive design principles should guide our work. Our goal is to create great user experiences for all users, regardless of their abilities or circumstances. This means designing with accessibility in mind from the very beginning. Okay. Now, when we think about action points around this, collaboration with developers is key. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this slide, it's that point. Okay. We need to understand what can and can't be achieved technically and work together to implement accessibility features effectively. Implementing WCAG guidelines is, well, it's non-negotiable. These guidelines help us create designs that are easy to understand and operate for users with diverse needs. They cover a vast range of things such as color contrast, keyboard navigation, all kinds of stuff. So dig deep, let that be your sort of North Star there. When crafting user stories, which are brief explanations of how a particular content block or component will work, it's important to ensure they reflect the functionality needed to support our accessible vision. Lastly, UI consistency is vital. While creativity is important, we should avoid unnecessary variations that might confuse users. As an aside on that will help reduce your development costs as well a little. By focusing on these awareness points and actions, we can ensure that our designs are not only aesthetically pleasing, but also accessible and inclusive for everyone. A key takeaway here I'd like you to remember is that accessibility is not just a tick box exercise about compliance. It's about creating inclusive designs that consider the diverse needs of users. An interesting observation, if I may, is that we found that designing with accessibility in mind often actually produces even better UX for all users, regardless of disability. So now let's talk about developers, okay? These are the guys that make the magic happen. They obviously play a key role in creating functional and accessible digital experiences. I've pulled out some of the most important considerations and actions here. So first, it's essential to emphasize again the importance of continuous learning and especially knowledge sharing. Stay current with new requirements, best practices, and especially emerging technologies. That ensures that we're always improving our accessibility efforts. There's some really interesting things going on with even just simple CSS techniques. One of the easiest to implement is using reduced motion. Look it up. I won't explain it in great detail, but that can really, that is like a silver bullet. It's really fantastic. Continuous learning includes participating in workshops, attending conferences just like this one, and engaging with online communities to stay up to date. Next, planning accessibility tasks is crucial. Organising tasks into relevant back-end or front-end departments helps streamline our approach and ensures that accessibility is considered throughout the development process. This includes identifying potential accessibility challenges and allocating resources accordingly. Remember I mentioned about accessibility champions in teams. Make sure the right people are in the right place at the right time. Development efficiency is also vital if you are going to make it cost effective. If we've worked really hard to solve an accessibility issue, document it, make it reusable, extend it, get it ready for the next project. This not only saves time, but also ensures that our solutions are consistent and scalable. Now, thinking about actionable steps here, we're going to keep on hammering this point home. Collaboration and feedback are essential. By identifying challenges and collaborating to solve them, we can ensure that our accessibility efforts are comprehensive and effective. Testing consistency. Whew. Yeah, this is a tricky one and a challenge for many teams that collaborate together. Agreeing on a standard set of tools and tests for the whole team to use helps ensure that our accessibility testing is thorough, reliable, and more importantly, consistent. We'll talk a little bit more about testing later on, but at Illustrate Digital, we've developed a comprehensive in-house process around this. Think of it like a checklist. This has guidance on what to look out for, common errors, and the right tool to use. Finally, using semantic HTML structures and things like ARIA attributes and correct labeling on form fields are basically essential for enhancing accessibility. Semantic HTML provides a clear structure for our content, making it easier for screen readers and other assistive technologies to interpret. Please don't force HTML to do something it wasn't intended to do just to match a design. Always use the most semantic markup you can with valid HTML. A consideration here. Consider using CSS classes to achieve semantic ordering of HTML tags when the visual design doesn't reflect the needs of the layout of client. So please just don't use heading tags just for styling, as many people do. If you need a H2 tag heading to look like an H4, just add a CSS class to achieve this. It's really very simple. Just following those last couple of things will solve many of your accessibility issues. So semantic ordering and just extra CSS class on styling, and of course valid HTML. It will solve all kind of issues for you. So test, test, test as you develop. Do not wait until the end. And that neatly moves us on to testing from start to finish, okay? So testing for accessibility should never be considered a one-time task. It's a continuous process that requires shared responsibility throughout the production lifecycle. To ensure thorough and reliable testing, it's essential to develop and document a consistent testing process, as I've mentioned. And more importantly, keep that up to date as new tools get discovered, as things improve, as things change. Please, this is not a one-hit wonder. You need to actually keep that testing process up to date, okay? And again, I'm going to keep on saying this, but collaboration truly is the key when resolving technical issues and adapting UI designs, and it just increases the knowledge across the whole team. A word on automated testing tools. So they can really be useful, but please be aware that they do require manual interpretation to ensure accurate results. Do not blindly trust accessibility testing tools. Really effective accessibility testing requires some knowledge, some learnings. When it comes to prioritizing exceptions, it's crucial to grade them on seriousness, and please focus on resolving those that affect important functionality. Minor exceptions can come up, but they should be documented during testing and added to the accessibility statement to provide transparency, and please try and keep those to a minimum. Regular audits can also be very useful in identifying and addressing issues proactively, ensuring that accessibility is maintained over time. This includes tools, as I've mentioned, around validating HTML, assess document outlines, and ensure semantic ordering. We'll touch upon a few tools a little later on. By following these best practices and maintaining a consistent testing process throughout the entire production lifecycle, we can ensure that our website and digital products are accessible and usable by all users, and we don't get caught out at the end of a project thinking, oh my word, we've now got another 50 hours of development in front of us because this wasn't tested as we go. From start to finish, please. Okay. So we produce the site and we can make all of that very accessible, but of course it's so important to educate and assist our clients on producing accessible content. We want to empower our clients to do this. It's crucial to equip them with the right knowledge to maintain the accessibility we've built into the bespoke WordPress theme we've created. So let's explore a few key principles and actions that can guide us on achieving this goal. So again, I'm going to keep on hammering this point home. Let's talk about semantic structure. So using a proper heading hierarchy such as H1, H2, H3 is essential for improving navigation, especially for screen readers. And dare I say, a little nod to SEO along the way. This ensures that content is well organized, it's logical, and it's easily accessible to all users. Honestly, this is probably the most common failure or misunderstanding by content creators. Developing functionality to support alternative heading styling is as simple as adding an additional CSS class to your heading, adding in that class into your CSS, of course. As mentioned, please, again, don't use heading tags purely for styling purposes. I've mentioned how you can effectively add a CSS class to a heading to make a H2 look like a H4. And depending on your development skills and experience, you can certainly extend the block editor to support that. So now let's consider contrast next. It's really important not to rely solely on color to convey information. particularly in situations, for instance, where you might be using an image background, which, by the way, should have a CSS color behind them to, white text on a white background when the image is disabled or doesn't load is not effective for any user, regardless of the challenges faced by them. Ensuring sufficient contrast helps users with visual impairments access content effectively. Understanding your audience is also key. Aim for clear, concise written language that resonates with the audience's needs and preferences. Great accessibility is not just about UI or your code. Those are just vessels for your content. I might suggest tools like Hemingway Editor can actually help you author content that's more readable by providing feedback on sentence structure and complexity. So let's think about actions here. Focus on clear intent. Use descriptive text instead of generic phrases like click here wherever possible. Be very clear on the purpose of that link. This provides context and improves accessibility for users relying on screen readers. Click here means nothing to anybody. For embedded media and downloads, provide captions and transcripts for videos and ensure PDFs are accessible. This ensures that all users can access multimedia content regardless of their abilities. Finally, the obvious one, and again, probably top of the list or second on the list of mistakes that content creators make, always create well-written, descriptive alt tags for images. It needs a little guidance and training, but please remember this. It's so quick and easy to do in the WordPress media library. This enhances accessibility by providing context for visually impaired users. By following these best practices, we can empower our clients to create accessible content that fosters an inclusive digital environment. Let's talk through some tools now. There's a few things here, okay? Now, when it comes to accessibility-focused development and testing, we use a variety of tools to ensure that everything we produce is accessible and usable by all users. We do discover new tools and switch around, but remember the communication aspect. By ensuring that all of our team members are aware of changes, of new tools, of new techniques, of better ways of working, we can share that knowledge, okay, and ultimately create a repeatable, consistent process and results. We even have a dedicated accessibility channel in our company Slack, providing a one-stop location for updates and discussions for the whole team. This stops information getting siloed in your team. Share your expertise, foster that culture. It will do nothing but good to accelerate your accessibility efforts and frankly save you time and budget and queries when testing doesn't quite match up. So I'm going to run through a few things here. Okay, I'm going to describe the reasoning behind some of these tools and why they're useful. By the way, all of these are free. So the top one there, the readability testing. There are plenty of websites out there that do this, and there's probably some rather clever AI stuff that can do this now. But just for quick checks on readability, so how easy is your text to understand? We sometimes use WebFX's readability testing tool to assess just this. This tool provides a score based on various algorithms, including ones that I struggle to pronounce, okay? We record the score and calculate the average, highlighting any unusually low scores or high scores, providing providing precise guidance for improvement. It's a really nice quick check. Just copy and paste the text of the page into it. You'll soon get a nice report back. So I've mentioned about automated testing, and currently we're using 3 tools, believe it or not. So we use a range of tools, including Site Improve, Wave, and Microsoft Accessibility Insights. These tools help us identify potential accessibility issues. So these are kind of automated testing tools, such as missing alt text, incorrect heading levels, insufficient color contrast. I would like to just flag up the Microsoft one. It's surprisingly powerful and has a couple of very useful features like landmark identification. This is one I'm personally keeping an eye on, and it's relatively new to us. So we've probably brought that on board in the last 6-ish months. I like it. It's good. Web developer toolbar. Oh my word. Oh my word. We use the near legendary web developer toolbar to perform all sorts of tasks, including checking out tags, disabling images, validating HTML straight from the browser. It's quite nice. You can validate local HTML. So if you are developing locally, as you should, so you've got your web server installed on your laptop, you are creating code and you are seeing it on your computer or laptop. It's a one click to actually validate local HTML. You don't have to copy and paste things. It's very useful. So yeah, I mean, there's just so much in the web developer. I think it's just called web developer now, whereas it used to be called web developer toolbar. Document outline checking, semantic ordering, tab indexes, unlabeled form fields. Literally, the list goes on. This is the proper Swiss Army knife, okay, for millions of different things in one extension. So yeah, I just want to be really clear. If there's one extension that everyone should install, genuinely, it's that one. It's available for a number of different browsers. So contrast quick checks. Obviously, I've mentioned automated tools here, but we use this one here that is very clearly called Color Contrast Checker. They have a website that's very attractive. They have a browser extension that you can use as well. This allows us to just quickly do on-the-spot assessments of color contrast of our designs or websites or anything. It has a nice little eyedropper where you can sample colors. It's actually very, very nice. This tool helps ensure that our designs meet the minimum color contrast requirements for accessibility. As I say, I think it looks great. It also has a nice trick up its sleeve, which enables you to visualize color contrast and how things are going to look with different Google fonts too. As I mentioned, it has a very nice Chrome extension. Some of the more eagle eyes amongst you might have noticed that Google Lighthouse is actually not on there. While this is an interesting tool, and yeah, sure, sometimes we fire it up and use it for different things, we've had some inconsistencies in what has been reported, and that is why we use more than one tool. Okay, we've had some false contrast checks, that have actually been picked up by our developers where they've thought that's not quite right, and then done a manual check. And yeah, so whilst we do use this for some things, we don't really use it for accessibility testing so much as we did maybe 12-18 months ago. So when using these tools, it's essential to remember that automated testing is not a replacement for expertise and manual testing. We need to visually and technically assess and use our judgment to identify any issues that may not be caught by automated tools. So just one tip here. When using automated testing tools, be mindful of false positives and negatives, or even miss things. Don't take the output of any automated testing tool as gospel. That's why I say we use a couple of different ones, maybe 3 at times, and we use our own expertise and manual interpretation to validate those results. So, as we've explored throughout this presentation, accessibility is not just a moral imperative, but a critical component of creating inclusive and usable digital products. We've seen how integrating accessibility into every stage of the development process and sales process, even before that, from design to testing can ensure that our digital products are accessible to all users, regardless of their abilities, whilst maintaining commercial viability. We've also addressed the common concern that accessibility costs more. As we've demonstrated here, considering accessibility from start to finish can actually save costs in the long run by avoiding costly retrofits or a big push at the end when you suddenly realize, oh, I've left it to the last minute. Please don't do that. And we want to ensure that our digital products are usable by the widest audience we can. With a skilled team, high accessibility can be partnered with creative, innovative design. I can assure you of that. We've seen how semantic structure, color contrast, and clean content can enhance the user experience for all users, whilst also ensuring that our digital products are accessible to those users that have disabilities. As I start to wind up this presentation now, I want to leave you with a key takeaway. Accessibility is not a trade-off between creativity and inclusivity. Rather, it's a fundamental aspect of creating digital products that are usable, accessible, and inclusive for all users. By prioritizing accessibility and incorporating it into every stage of our development process from start to finish, we can create products and websites that are not only compliant with regulations, but ultimately, as I said, provide a better user experience for all users. So let's make accessibility a core part of our design and development process and create a more inclusive digital landscape for everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found that insightful. I'd now like to welcome any questions you may have, please.
Thank you so much, Jonny. That was an amazing, amazing presentation. I mean, you're natural. That's what it is. That's what I'll say.
Very kind.
Yeah.
Not my first rodeo, to be fair.
Yeah, so thank you, Jonny, again for your wonderful presentation on inclusive design strategies for WordPress professionals. At this point, I'd like to ask our audience to enter their questions in the question and answer section. Please ask questions, and you can be rest assured that Jonny will be there to answer as many questions as the time permits. Thank you.
I can actually see a couple in the Q&A. Am I okay to just sort of dig into those?
Yes.
Cool.
So let me ask that one. So in building your team at Illustrate Digital, did you recruit for accessibility awareness or for design skills and then add accessibility to their tool belt?
Okay, that's actually a really interesting question because I'm recruiting for my department right now. I won't say any more about that, but hey. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so I think to be a professional in this industry these days, okay, so I can see that's all for design skills. So I'm thinking that's probably UX UI department, my baby. Okay, so frankly, I kind of use it as a little bit of a sense of character, a sense of professionalism, a sense of care for the user. I would be slightly alarmed, if I'm honest with you, if I was recruiting for the UX department, if they weren't interested in accessibility, because great user experience relies on accessibility. And as I mentioned, actually, achieving great accessibility can actually provide an amazing improved user experience for all users of a website. So just following those best practices is good acumen. So to accurately answer that question, I would be alarmed if someone in UX these days didn't care about accessibility or had at least working knowledge. If they were an amazing creative, and showed interest, but not demonstrated expertise and knowledge, we would be more than happy to bring them in and train them. So I expect to see awareness. I don't necessarily expect to see knowledge and expertise up to the level that we carry in house. And that's something I would foster and mentor. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you so much. That was very great insight. And I do think it answers the question. We have another question, and I'd like to read it out to you if that's okay.
Okay, I can see the question from Philip Bremer there. As a developer, how much knowledge should I have in accessible design? An agency asked me to offer them an accessible website. They will deliver the design but have no experience in it. I asked to work with someone who at least made an online course, but I don't think this is going to happen. Should I take the responsibility in the design too? Okay, that's a really, really interesting question. And I've actually spent most of my career before joining Illustrate Digital as a freelancer. So I've kind of been down this avenue. Okay. So with this one, it really depends on your client or the agency you're working with, Philip. So for me, I would offer to collaborate with their in-house design team right from the start. You may also offer them the choice of collaboration and consultation. It's up to you how you build that. Of course, I'm not going to get into that. So collaboration and fostering that, but get in from the start, please, Philip. Don't get the designs and have to then tear it apart. Offer the consultation, or because otherwise you will likely end up with a UI style kit that is not accessible, okay, and then face like a long road on refining that. So get in from the start, or as you said, should I take the responsibility in the design too? Again, I'm not going to talk about billing and commercials around that. That is certainly an option, but personally, my preferred first avenue, especially if this is an agency that you work with regularly, is to help foster them, share knowledge, help develop their understanding of accessibility in UI design and UX. To help you achieve what they're asking for. Just one final point there. I would personally be reinforcing very strong caveats of, okay, you're producing the design. I cannot guarantee it is going to be an accessible build without my consultation. So just caveats and protect yourself, Philip, and help them understand that accessibility isn't just contrast and the basics. Okay, I hope that answers the question there.
Thank you so much, Jonny. We do have another question, and it says, do you do user testing with people with specific disabilities as well as your internal testing? If so, do you have any recommendations for finding suitable external testers?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting one, anonymous attendee. Okay, so right now, I'll be straight up and honest with you. We do user interviews, user testing as part of a UX research process. Okay. We have not had a requirement as such, certainly in recent times, for testing with people with specific disabilities. Okay. But it says, if so, do you have any recommendations for finding suitable external testers? Okay, so I can share a couple of insights around that part at least. Recruiting for user testing can be costly, complicated, very time consuming. The more narrower you get on the demographic of the type of person that you want to participate, the narrower it gets, the harder it gets. Okay. There are various websites that help you recruit users. user interviews, usertesting.com. All these have a price tag to them, and they have a pool of users, and you can set up screener questions and things like that. As I say, the narrower you get on the criteria for recruitment, the harder it gets. So frankly, you may actually need to go down a more specialized, bespoke recruitment route to find suitable testers with disabilities. Also, don't discount going into communities, forums, LinkedIn groups, support groups, things like that, and asking the honest question. But what I will leave you with is a final nugget. If you want people to participate and engage with user testing, please don't expect it for free. Any user tester should be rewarded. You will find if you try to hop skip that and not reward them, people won't turn up, they won't be engaged. Hell, they probably won't even apply. So as a rough guide, you're probably looking at, the user testing sessions shouldn't be more than half an hour. They should be half an hour or less. You're probably looking at a rough range, depending on the type of person and lots of different factors, of around, I'll use US dollars, a minimum really of about $50-$60 for a 60-hour, a 30-minute session, $50-$60 ish. As I said, user testing, moderated user testing when you're on a call like this and sharing screens, it's not cheap, and please don't expect users to do it for free. I hope that answers the question the best I can anyway.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much again, Jonny. I'd just like to tell everyone that this was an amazing session on my end. I did enjoy it. So yes, thank you for attending this session with Jonny Allbut. You can continue the conversation in the chat or on social media using hashtag WPA11YDay and hashtag WPAD2024. We also appreciate it if you go to 2024.wpaccessibility.day/feedback to provide anonymous feedback for our speakers on their presentation. You can also enter to win a t-shirt while you're there. Stay tuned for improving and enforcing digital accessibility laws and standards in Africa. Coming up next with Femi Taiwo at 9 a.m. UTC. And while you're waiting, don't forget to visit our sponsors page to grab virtual swags and enter for a chance to win great prizes. See you right here after the break. Thank you.
Thank you to WordPress Accessibility Day 2024 sponsors. Platinum sponsor 20i. Easily build, deploy, and manage all your projects with 20i managed WordPress hosting. One UI for all your servers, apps, sites, databases, security, DNS, and email. Perfect for agencies, e-commerce, developers, multi-site hosting, and high-traffic sites. Platinum sponsor Equalize Digital. Since all they do is accessibility, every post on their blog is an accessibility resource. You can find webinar recordings, articles, and additional resources at equalizedigital.com/resources. Platinum sponsor WP Engine. WP Engine provides the most relied upon and trusted WordPress products for businesses, brands, and agencies of all sizes. Thanks to our gold sponsors, GoDaddy, Grackle Docs, Gravity Forms, Green Geeks, TPGI, and Yoast. And thank you to our silver sponsors, CodeGeek, Drake Cooper, Elementor, Overnight Website, Pressable, Second Melody, and Accessibility Collective.